Hi everybody, it's Mrs. Schultz again. We have two virtual art classes left, and we're going to spend the next two classes learning about the Indiana State tree, flower, insect, and bird. And this week we're going to focus on the Indiana State tree, which is the tulip tree, and the bird, which is a cardinal. This is what the tulip tree looks like. It's one of North America's largest trees. It can grow 190 feet tall, and the trunk can be 4 to 6 feet wide. It's pretty huge. And what's cool about these trees in the spring is they blossom. And it's called a tulip tree because their blooms look like tulips. Do you see this right here? My printer is running low on red ink, so you can't see it that well. But this shape looks a lot like a tulip, and then they have this reddish-orange stripe going through them. The whole tree fills up with those. It's really beautiful. And our Indiana State bird being a cardinal, I'm sure you guys all know what a cardinal looks like. Again, it should be much redder than this, but my printer ink is low. Sorry about that. But we're going to be painting the sky as well. So instead of doing the tree, remember how we used to do the trunk and then we would tap in all the value and the shape of the tree? We've done that a few times now. So instead, we're going to focus on these really pretty blossoms today. So go ahead and get out your art supplies. You're going to need paint, napkin, water and brush, and then a pencil with an eraser. And to get started on the tulip tree blossoms, I'm going to review with you the one brush stroke leaf that I taught you. That looks like this. I'll just review right now. Remember how we go really light and then we push down and then lift up again to get a leaf shape? We're going to use something similar to that to get the tulip shape. I need to erase this from my page, so blot it off. All right, so go ahead and get some yellow on your brush for these tulip blossoms. And what we do is start at the bottom of the blossom and we push and then lift up. Do it again. Push, lift up. Do you see how that is a similar shape as that? With just 3 simple brush strokes. Let's do another one over here. So push down and lift up. Again. And one more. Whoa. My bristles went all crazy there. Push down and lift up. And on this one, I'm going to add a few petals behind these ones by just sort of painting a triangle up in here and filling that in. Okay, while the yellow is still wet, I want to add a tiny bit of brown to it just to show, see, even that's too much, where the different petals are so that they don't just look like yellow blobs. Let's add a little bit of shadow to the tops of the petals and along the sides like this. So put a little tiny bit of brown up there and just sort of let it bleed into the yellow. This part doesn't have to be really precise. It's just so that we can tell where one petal starts and the other ends. Same thing over here. Just adding a little bit of brown. Okay. And then the neat thing about these blossoms is the red that goes through sort of the, I don't know, lower third of the petals. Put some red on your brush and make little tiny stripes like that. We'll make this one coming up a little more. And then we've got the other petal over here, little stripes. So that should look something like that. And then we're going to paint these leaves that unfolded to expose the flower. We're going to paint these under here. Okay, so get some green on your brush. Remember, I like to add a little bit of brown to my green when I'm painting earthy things. And we're going to do the same thing. So push and lift. Push and lift. If you don't like how this is pooling right there, just take your brush and smooth out that paint a little bit. And then you can do a skinnier one. These don't have to be precise. I just want you to get the general shape and practice doing that one brush stroke leaf. Let's do the same thing over here. Push and lift. Push, lift. If it starts getting too watery, just add a little more paint and go back over it. And then I'm going to add stems on these with just tiniest little bristle. Try to go really lightly. There we go. Looks pretty good. So there we have the blossoms on the tulip tree. Looks something like that. Now we're going to move on to our cardinal. You can just do this somewhere else on your paper. I'm going to turn the page because of where I put this on my paper. There's not a great spot to paint the cardinal. Okay. And for this, you're going to need a pencil and eraser. And let's look at our cardinal here. And as always, we're going to look for the main shapes. And what I see, if we were to take this back line and extend it, do you see how it sort of looks like a half circle right here? We're going to be painting that, and then we'll add in the feathers on the head. I think that's called a crown or a crest. I can't remember now. I studied birds a couple years ago. My memory is not as good as yours, I'm sure. And then the tail feathers will go off of the half circle as well, but we don't need to draw those in. And then we'll add a triangular beak and a circle eye. So birds are pretty simple shaped for the most part. And once you get those shapes down, the rest of it is just details. So let's go ahead and get the body drawn. Again, I'm going to draw hard so that you can see these lines, but you should go nice and soft on your paper. The beak comes in a little bit like this. Maybe like that, actually. And then his eye is right about here, just a circular eye. Doesn't look too good now, but as we add the paint in, it'll come together nicely. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is start with the lightest color, which on the cardinal is just red, because the cardinal is pretty much red and black. I'm going to put a little bit of orange, this orangish red on my brush with the regular red, so you can kind of mix those two. And to paint in the cardinal, anytime, well, really anytime you do feathers, it's best to do sort of this flicking motion with your brush. Do you see how I'm doing that? So instead of just going like this and painting the whole cardinal a solid red, just gently fill it in with a little bit of texture, and that'll look more realistic. And this will take a couple minutes. If it starts getting too dry and you see a lot of the white of the paper, just add some more water to your brush. For the head, I'm going to do the feathers like this. Flick your brush and let it get thinner as it goes out. All right, and then the tail, get some red, and again, just flick your brush out. Lighten up on the pressure as it goes out from the bird. Next, we're going to come in and add some of the darker values, like under here on the belly, and we're going to start putting in some of the wings. So I'm going to get a mixture of black and brown on my brush, and I'm just going to paint it right along the bottom there to get sort of a base coat, and then come back in and add that texture to blend it into the red. And while you have that on your brush, you can add a little bit of brown throughout the body. It'll just add a little bit of interest and value. And then these birds have sets of feathers on their back, and they go kind of like this. There's a set here. So get black on your brush. Right there. And there's another set here that lead to the tail. You should still be able to see some red through it, but get some of the black on there as well. And then water down the black on your brush a little bit and just start adding in some of that black value along the back here for shadows. I'm going to add a little bit of black into these feathers on his head too, make it look more realistic. And to the tail. And this set of feathers right here is actually casting a shadow on his body underneath. So I'm going to add some softer black right under there as a shadow. If you want little pops of red back, if you added a little too much black, just go back in with the red. Really saturated red and hit the black with red on top. There you go. Okay. Next, we're going to add red and orange to this beak. Go ahead and draw a line through the center of it. So get some orange on your brush and paint this beak a reddish orange. We're going to go back in and add a reflection on the beak since it's really shiny and reflects light. I'm going to show you how to do that. But there's some orange and then a little bit of red here and maybe here, whatever. There can be different colors on the beak. What I want you to do is get ready to blot. Twist a napkin into a tiny point like that and go pick up some of that paint off of the nose or the beak and down here too. Okay, so blot off some of that. And some of that. And you get a little reflection on the beak. Makes it look more realistic. Another thing we're going to add is the black around the beak and the eye. So get a really saturated black on your brush and carefully place that black right around here. Remember, you can add a little bit of navy blue to the black if it's not standing out enough, or if it looks too red. Fill in this part with black, and then the same thing that we did up here, we're going to do down here, and add teeny tiny little fuzzy feathers that stick out from the black. I'm going to paint on a black line. If you're not comfortable doing this, that's fine. But if you think you can get it super thin, go ahead and paint a really tiny black line on there. Remember, you're going to have to roll your brush to get it down to one bristle thick at the very point. Okay. And then for the eye, eyes are wet, and so they always look more realistic if you leave a little bit of a white spot on there. I'm just going to paint in a white spot, or mask out a white spot, and then put the eye color around it. And the eye kind of blends in with the rest of the black that's around the eye and the beak, and that's okay. But you see how I left a little bit white? That's what you're going for. Okay. Looks pretty good. Let's add some feet. Bird feet are tricky, but I'm gonna just show you a couple brush strokes to at least get a basic foot down on here. Don't worry too much about this if they don't turn out exactly as mine. That's okay. They're, like I said, it's tricky, and we're not going to spend the amount of time on them that would be required to make them look really realistic. But if you start up here in the body and come down, they get a little bit thicker at the bottom because all the toes come out of there. This is like the top of the foot. Okay, and then for each toe, or whatever they're called, I know they're not claws. I'm really drawing a lot of blanks today, guys. Do a line, and then they have like a claw thing that's even tinier that comes out of that. So that's sort of the basic shape. You do a toe and a claw. You do it over here, a toe and a claw. Chicken feet are similar too. I'm not a fan. Maybe that's why I don't spend a lot of time on them. I think they're gross looking. We can go ahead and do this one too. So again, they get a little thicker down here, the top of the foot where the toes come out, and a claw. Though they are useful, right? This is how they hold on to branches and such, but they are not pretty. Maybe we should paint them blue, like mine. Okay, and if you want to add a branch coming through here that maybe they're grabbing onto, you could do that. Let's see, I'm going to add one more. Okay, so let's say there's a branch that this guy's holding on to. It's hard because I'm trying not to touch the claws and the feet. It's all sort of blending together. But what I'm going to do, now that I have sort of the basic placement of that, I'm just going to make it a little more abstract and put water on my brush and just blend this down into the painting. And let your imagination fill in the rest of what they're standing on, right? You can take that artistic liberty. Looks kind of cool anyway. All right, so there's our cardinal. So I will see you guys next time when we're going to learn how to paint the peony and the firefly, which are the Indiana State flower and insect.